Frost, you are not cleared to blow that stairwell. Say again, do not detonate. The voice from Talk cracked through the static, calm in a way that made Captain Elena Markova's skin crawl. She pressed her shoulder harder into the crumbling concrete, feeling the tremor of footsteps above. Heavy, rushed, more than 10, maybe all 20. They're massing on level 3, Sergeant Maya Ortiz hissed beside her, eyes on the tablet feed. If they reach the hostages, it's over. We seal it now. Elena glanced at the timer on her wrist. Joey 22, until the dead man switch on the main charge defaulted to safe. 22 seconds to decide whether to entomb everyone above them, terrorists, hostages, whoever was still breathing, or let the enemy regroup and punch out into the city. ROE is clear, Talk insisted. No structural collapse with unconfirmed civilian count. You breach and clear. That's an order, Frost. Breach and clear, with 2 operators against 20, Maya muttered. That's not an order. That's a suicide note. The impact of a boot slammed against the door above. Dust sifting down like ash. Someone pulled a pin. Metal clinked on concrete. Elena, Maya whispered, voice cracking. Call it. Heart or handbook? Elena's thumb hovered over the detonator. The timer hit 0010, 36 hours earlier. Alsara Joint Operations Base, UTC +3. The operations center always looked the same before a mission. Too bright, too cold, and full of people pretending not to be afraid. Captain Elena Markova stood at the back of the room, arms folded over her plate carrier, eyes on the digital sand table. The target building glowed in pale blue on the screen, a rectangular block of pixels in Rakim's old quarter. Lines traced routes of advance, ingress points, breach markings. It was neat, almost comforting. If you forgot, real people bled inside those thin green outlines. Primary assault will hit here. Major Collins tapped the main entrance with a laser pointer, little red dot jittering from caffeine or nerves. Alpha and Bravo stacks. Expect light resistance, 8 to 10 shooters max. Our friends in Intel say they're not expecting a full court press tonight. Elena's jaw tightened. Our friends in Intel hadn't been the ones who'd had to carry bodies out of the last light resistance. Sergeant Maya Ortiz shifted beside her, adjusting the sling of her carbine. 10 tops, Maya murmured under her breath. They always say 10. On the screen, a thinner line wrapped around the rear of the building, past an alley and an external stairwell. Collins followed it with his pointer. Echo Element, led by Captain Markova, will anchor the flank on the south side. You'll interdict any squirters trying to bail out the back and provide eyes on the alley. Your support, not lead. No heroics, no independent action. We clear? His gaze swept the room, pausing on her for half a second longer than on anyone else, as if expecting argument. Elena kept her voice level. Sir, request clarification on enemy estimate. Collins exhaled impatiently. What about it, Captain? She nodded toward the overlay. SIGINT logs show 3 distinct call signs just in the last 24 hours. HUMINT notes mention rotating guards on 2 separate floors. That's a lot of movement for just 8 to 10. A few heads turned. The room's noise dropped a notch. Collins frowned at the screen. Intel's confident on their numbers. Intel was confident on Naram Bridge too, she said, before she could swallow it back. The Major's eyes hardened. A few operators shifted awkwardly. That operation was still a bruise everyone pretended not to touch. Different situation, Collins said. We've got host nation liaison inside this time, and ISR has been watching the place for days. You have your role, Captain. Hold the alley, cover the rear, update TOC if anything looks off. That's it. Row text scrolled in the corner of the display. No structural demolition without TOC authorization. Clean, simple words that would feel very far away once the shooting started. Elena studied the building wireframe again. 2 stairwells, Narrow internal hallways, no fire escapes, one small rooftop access hatch where a quadcopter had glimpsed rebar and tarps. "Sir," she said carefully, "if enemy strength exceeds estimate and attempts to break out, Echo will be outnumbered in that alley. Recommend we designate secondary breach on the south stairwell, with limited explosive options." Collins shook his head. "Negative. We're not bringing that building down. We've got unconfirmed civilians in the surrounding blocks. ROE is crystal. You want more boom? Talk to the lawyers, not me. You will not rig structural supports without TOC approval. Understood?" The word structural hung in the air like a threat. "Understood," Elena said. He moved on, talking casualty evac, frequencies, call signs, the rehearsed rhythm of a textbook operation. She listened, but only half. Her mind ran ahead, tracing routes not on the screen. The blind corner by the south stairwell, the collapsed drain she'd seen on the last UAV pass, the spot where a small, quiet blast could turn a narrow corridor into a wall. Maya leaned closer. "He didn't like that," she whispered. "He doesn't have to like it," Elena murmured back. "He just has to be wrong. ROE says, I know what ROE says." She also knew what a body looked like when you followed ROE into a trap someone else had written for you. The briefing wound down. "Step off at 2300 local," Collins concluded. "Questions?" No one raised a hand. Operators pushed back chairs, the scrape of metal legs loud in the fluorescent hum. Voices rose as teams clustered by call signs, rehearsing last-minute details. Elena stayed a moment, longer, staring at the frozen image of the building. 8 to 10, she thought. The pattern of movements, the radio traffic, the guard rotations. Nothing about it felt like 8 to 10. It felt like more, like something layered. She turned to Maya. "We're packing extra charges," she said quietly. "Unlogged. And I want the fiber optic checked twice." Maya's brows climbed. "Thought we were just holding the alley, ma'am." "We are," Elena said, "until the plan falls apart. TUC won't clear structural shots." "They don't have to." She slung her helmet under one arm. "We'll just be ready if reality doesn't match the slide deck." Maya hesitated, then nodded. "Copy, Frost." As they stepped out of the cold, bright room into the dim corridor beyond, the roar of a helicopter rolled over the roof, rattling the ceiling tiles. Somewhere outside, engines turned over, metal and diesel and momentum. The plan on the screen said Echo was a supporting element. In Elena's gut, a different story was already taking shape. One where the only people between 20 armed men and a city full of civilians would be two women whose names no one would remember. The armory smelled like gun oil and tired jokes. Sergeant Maya Ortiz laid her plate carrier on the metal bench, fingers running over every pouch, every buckle. She preferred to do it twice, once fast, once slow. The fast check was for function. The slow one was for the ghosts. "Lynx, your slot's up," a private called, gesturing to the weapons counter. She stepped forward. The armorer slid her carbine across the steel surface, serial number already logged. "Standard issue 5.56 meters, suppressor fitted, optics zeroed earlier in the week. Nothing special, nothing forgiving. Same as last time," he said, "triggers smooth." She ran the bolt, checked the chamber, dry-fired once, a small click swallowed by the room's chatter. The weapon felt right in her hands, the way it always did before something went wrong. "Ortiz?" Elena's voice came from behind her. "You good on comms?" "Getting there, ma'am." Maya slung the rifle and moved back to the bench where her headset and push to talk dangled like lifelines. The operations order replayed in her mind. "Hold the alley, watch the rear, 20 meters from the south wall. No independent movement without TOC approval." It sounded simple on paper. It never stayed simple. She clipped her radio into its pouch, fed the cable through her shoulder strap, and tested the push to talk. Links check 1, she said. Frost copies, Elena answered from 3 benches away. Say again on drone assets. Maya glanced toward the small equipment cage at the far end of the room. A stack of gray cases sat behind wire mesh, guarded by a bored-looking logistics sergeant with a tablet. The quadcopter, their only bird, was technically assigned to the main assault element. Echo was supposed to benefit from shared ISR coverage, which meant if things got busy, they'd get whatever crumbs of aerial footage were left. I'm going to see what I can steal, Maya muttered. Elena's mouth twitched, almost a smile. Borrow, Sergeant. We borrow. Right, borrow. She crossed to the cage. The logistics sergeant barely glanced up. Sergeant Ortiz, Echo element, she said. Requesting 1 spare door charge and a backup battery for the quad. Our flank position's outside the main ISR cone. He snorted. Your flank position is a sideshow. Assault gets priority. We've got 1 bird and 4 batteries. That's it. Maya kept her tone level. If the assault gets pinned and we're on the blind side, you'll wish you'd spent 1 battery on us. He tapped his tablet. Mission Matrix says Echo gets what's listed. 2 linear charges, 1 radio, 1 pair of NVGs you already signed for. You want more? Talk to your CO. She already did, Maya said. That's why I'm here. Then she already lost, he said, not unkindly. Look, we don't have enough toys for everyone. Rear support doesn't get dessert. She thought of concrete, rebar, a sealed door that wouldn't yield, a child's voice on the other side of it, hoarse from shouting. That had been a different city, a different building. The logistics officer then had shrugged the same way. Regulations, he'd said. Regulations hadn't carried the bodies out. ROE for tonight? Maya asked, changing angle. He glanced at the board screwed to the wall. Same as brief, PID required on anything outside the structure, especially balconies, NGO presence in adjacent blocks. No lobbing rounds at silhouettes just 'cause they look spooky. So if someone leaned out with a weapon half hidden and she wasn't sure, she'd be the one explaining it later. Or wishing she could. Copy, she said. As she turned away, a hand snagged her sleeve. Links, a low voice said. She turned. Staff Sergeant Harris, one of Alpha's team leaders, stood just inside the cage, helmet under his arm. He checked that the logistics sergeant was turned, then slipped a small taped bundle through the mesh. It was unmistakable, a compact breaching charge, heavier than it looked. Thought you were full up, she said quietly. I am, he replied. On paperwork, anyway. You didn't get this from me. Her fingers closed around the tape. That'll put you short. Harris shrugged. If I'm right and this goes textbook, we won't need it. If you're right and it doesn't, you will. I've seen the overlays. That alley's a funnel. His gaze sharpened. Don't waste it. He hesitated, then slid something else through. A slim, flat battery pack with a handwritten mark on the side. You're not touching my drone, he said. But if the bird goes down near you, that'll bring it back. Up. Consider it faith in bad planning. Maya tucked both items into an open pouch before the logistics sergeant turned back. Appreciate it, she said. Just don't make me regret believing the pessimist, Harris answered, then moved away to join his own stack. Back at the bench, Elena raised an eyebrow as Maya unpacked the extra weight and made space for it on her rig. You went shopping, Elena said. Apparently, support gets dessert if you ask nicely, Maya replied. Unofficially. Elena picked up the battery, reading the scribble on it. Harris? Yeah. Remind me to buy him a drink if we make it back. Maya nodded, then focused on her armor, adjusting the ride of the plates so the new charge wouldn't dig into her ribs. The weight felt right. Not comforting exactly, but like an answer to a question she hadn't voiced. A corporal stuck his head in the door. Echo, wheels up in 10. Mounting order is briefed. The room shifted into motion. Magazines clicked into pouches. Helmets settled onto heads. Last jokes were thrown like small shields against what waited outside the wire. Maya clipped her helmet, checked her radio one last time, and followed Elena toward the exit. "Sideshow, huh?" she said. "Sideshow until the main act collapses," Elena replied. "Then we're the only act left." Maya didn't argue. She just tapped the pouch with the extra charge, feeling its outline through the fabric. If the building tried to keep its secrets tonight, Echo would be a little less helpless than the planners thought. The MRAP suspension growled every time the vehicle hit a pothole, metal complaining under armor and weight. Capped. Elena Markova braced a hand on the ceiling grab bar and watched Rakim slide past through the narrow, dust-filmed window. The city looked different at night. Street vendors had packed up, but their carts still sat abandoned at corners. Plastic bags fluttered like ghosts along the gutters. Headlights cut hazy tunnels through diesel exhaust. Every shadow looked like it could hold a rifle. "Convoy, this is lead," a voice crackled over the net. "Reduce speed. Say again, reduce speed. NGO convoy ahead, left lane. Maintain 50-meter standoff." Elena could just make out the white SUVs up ahead, blue logos faint on their doors. The ROE line from the board echoed in her mind. No fires within 50 of marked NGO vehicles. Clear enough in a climate-controlled room. Less clear if someone used a logo as cover. Across from her on the bench, Sergeant Maya Ortiz adjusted the strap on her helmet, eyes flicking between Elena and the dim interior. Two other operators from Echo sat shoulder to shoulder with them, quiet, listening. "Great," Maya muttered. "Gridlock, Warzone edition." Outside, horns blared. A scooter squeezed between vehicles, engine whining, its rider glancing wide-eyed at the armored column. The MRAP jerked as the driver downshifted. "Convoy lead. We've got militia on the right side rooftop. Block 6, another voice reported. "Flagged as friendly, but they're armed and excited." Elena keyed her push to talk. "Lead Echo. Confirm time to target at current speed." A pause. Radio chatter overlapped in the background before the reply came. "Echo, we're slipping 5, maybe 10. Still within window. 5 to 10 minutes. Enough time for 20 men to move weapons, set up kill zones, grab hostages." Elena checked her wristwatch. 22 Phi 1 local, UTC +3. Step off had been 2300 in the brief, but that assumed friction-free roads, not reality. Maya leaned closer. "We're losing the dark edge," she said quietly. "The longer we wait, the more their night vision means less." "I know," Elena said. She pictured the building overlay again, the neat rectangles of the old quarter, the narrow alleys that had looked like simple lines on a map. They weren't. They'd be choke points, blind walls, children's bicycles dumped in the middle of the path. "Lead Echo," she tried again. "Request permission to dismount 2 blocks early and proceed on foot via South Alley network. We can be in position on time while convoy holds standoff." The answer was immediate. Tired. "Negative Echo. Movement plan is as briefed. We roll as a package. No elements breaking off until phase line Bravo." Package. As if the city would respect neat phases. Maya's gaze searched her face. "We can still make it if we jog," the sergeant said. "We're not that far." "Under orders," Elena reminded her. "Under a plan written by a guy who's never been stuck behind an aid truck at midnight," Maya said. The MRAP lurched again, brakes hissing. Outside, civilians were shouting, drivers trying to edge cars around the armored wall that had cut through their neighborhood. Somewhere, a dog barked nonstop. Somewhere else, something popped, sharp, quick, like a firework or a distant shot. "Lead, this is Alpha," another voice broke in. "We're losing surprise here. Civilians are out, watching. Request permission to bypass NGO and push through intersection." "Negative Alpha," Lead replied. "Maintain standoff. We don't spook the NGOs. That's above my pay grade." Elena exhaled through her nose. Every second felt like it slid off the clock and into enemy hands. She keyed her mic again, but this time she didn't call lead. She clicked to Echo's internal channel. "Echo, Frost, secure and silent," she ordered. The 3 sets of eyes in the dim cabin turned toward her. The MRAP's engine throbbed under their boots. "When we hit the next side street before phase line Bravo," she said, "we dismount on my call. We move on foot through the south alleys." Maya frowned. "Movement order says—" "I know what it says," Elena cut in, voice flat. "It also says Echo establishes flank overwatch before breach. At this rate, we'll be watching taillights, not the target. We'll still hit our assigned position. We'll just choose a different path to get there." "That's not exactly how the lawyers would phrase it," one of the other operators muttered. "Good thing the lawyers aren't in this truck," Elena replied. "We dismount clean, no drama. No weapons up unless we have PID. ROE stands. We don't fire near those NGO vehicles. We don't flag civilians. We don't start a riot. But we don't show up late, either." Maya studied her for a moment, then nodded slowly. "Copy that. Foot route will put us under those rooftops we flagged earlier. Use the corners," Elena said. "Minimal skyline, no hero shots." The radio on the main net kept humming with updates. Distance to target, shifting sectors, the drone operator's calm monotone as he described heat signatures near the building. Elena listened for the numbers. 2, 3, maybe 4 shapes at windows. Nothing about the 20 their gut told them about. The MRIP rolled past a side street barely wider than the vehicle itself, a dark slash between buildings. Elena saw a flash of movement deeper in, a silhouette ducking back, a kid maybe, or a scout. "Driver," she called forward. "Next right, stop just past the corner, nice and smooth." "Yes, ma'am." The next alley yawned ahead, cluttered with bins and a sagging line of laundry. Elena felt her heartbeat slow, a sure sign things were speeding up. "Convoy Echo," she said on the main net. "We're having intermittent comms issues. Switching to secondary, we'll rejoin at Bravo. Echo out." It wasn't even a lie. The city's concrete would play havoc with the radios once they were in the alleys. She just moved the timing up. The MRAP eased to a halt beside the alley mouth. Before Lead could answer, Elena slapped the door handle and pushed. "Dismount," she ordered. Cool night air flooded the cabin, laced with diesel and frying oil from some late-night kitchen. Boots thudded on asphalt as Echo spilled out, then hugged the shadow of the wall. Maya came up on her left, rifle low, eyes adjusting fast. "We are so getting yelled at later," she murmured. "If later exists," Elena said, "they can yell all they want." They slipped into the alley. It tightened around them immediately, walls rising high on both sides, windows black. A flickering street lamp threw a sickly cone of light ahead. Trash bags slumped against doorways, cats hiding behind them. The city's noise muffled, replaced by their own footsteps and the occasional distant shout. They moved fast, but not careless. Maya checked corners with quick slices of her muzzle. IR laser flicked on and off like a heartbeat. The others covered rear and high, scanning for rooftop silhouettes. "Target building 1 block north," Maya said quietly, consulting the dim glow of her wrist-mounted GPS. "We cut left, then right, and we're in the pocket." A small motorbike sputtered across the far end of the alley, its rider glancing once at their shadowed figures and then deciding he had somewhere else to be. Elena felt the knot in her chest loosen a fraction as they reached the final corner before the target. She raised a fist. The team froze. She peered around the edge. There it was. The building from the briefing, no longer a wireframe but a hulking dark shape against the sky. The south wall loomed just across a narrow lane, blank and featureless except for a small, recessed doorway and the outline of an external stairwell climbing out of sight. "We're here," Maya whispered. Elena brought her radio up, about to report Echo in position, when a low rumble reached them, rolling through the night. A half-second later, the rumble became a thunderclap, an explosion from the front of the building, out of sight but close enough to send a shiver through the pavement. Contact front, a voice screamed over the net. Alpha is hit. IED, IED. The rest dissolved into static and overlapping shouts. Elena met Maya's eyes in the dim alley, the walls of Rakim closing in around them. The plan had just ended. Whatever came next would not be on the slides. The blast rolled through the alley like a physical thing, a punch of overpressure that rattled loose plaster from the walls. Maya flinched, one hand going instinctively to her ear. "That wasn't a flashbang," she said. "Negative," Elena replied, already switching to the main net. Her radio spat overlapping voices, compressed and frantic. "Alpha is down. We've got multiple, taking fire from upper windows, east and west. Possible secondary. Stay off the..." The building ahead flickered, flashes blooming at the front facade they couldn't see from the south side. Echo's vantage point gave them nothing but the mute rise of concrete and the narrow lane at its base. Elena keyed her mic. "Talk, Echo. We're on the south flank, in position. What's your picture at the main entrance, over?" Static hissed back at her, then a clipped answer. "Echo talk. Alpha and Bravo hit an IED at the front. Secondary contact from upper levels, likely PKM. They're taking cover. Hold your position and await tasking. Say again, hold position." "Copy," Elena said automatically. A PKM. That explained the chattering roar threading through the other sounds, a harsh mechanical grind riding the air between detonations. "ROE update," Talk continued. "No indirect fires until we confirm hostage locations. ISR is still building pattern. You do not, repeat, do not call for mortars or CAS on that structure." "Wilco," Elena answered. Maya edged closer to the corner, peeking her optic around just enough to catch a sliver of the building's front. Muzzle flashes strobed in an upper floor window, the PKM's tracers stitched out into the darkness. "Alpha's pancaked," Maya murmured. "They're hugging the street." On the net, someone screamed, "Medic! Medic! Front truck!" The shout cut off in a burst of static. Elena's fingers tightened around her radio. She could almost see it, without seeing it. The lead MRAP nose up from the blast, doors jammed, men pinned behind wheels, and whatever cover they could find. A kill zone someone had walked them into. "Echo talk," the operations officer said. His voice was calm, but the edges were frayed. "Hold south flank. We need you as a blocking element in case they try to squirt out. Do not advance on the structure until Alpha reconstitutes. We don't have your back if you go in alone." "Understood," Elena replied. She didn't move. The PKM chattered again. Long bursts, individual carbine shots answered, quieter, desperate. Sirens wailed somewhere deeper in the city, local response, or just someone panicking. "Internal channel," Elena said softly. She switched. "Echo, Frost," she murmured. "Status. 2 up," Maya answered immediately. The other 2 operators echoed her. 3 up. 4 up. They were 4 ghosts in a side alley while their friends were being chewed up at the front. "Ma'am," Maya said, "if we push across to that side door, we can..." Talk said hold. One of the others cut in. "They don't have ISR for us. We go in, we go blind. They're already screaming for medevac up front." He wasn't wrong, but sitting still while others bled twisted something deep inside Elena's chest. On the main net, a new voice cut through, rough with pain. "Any station, this is Alpha 2. I'm hit. We're stuck by the lead truck, front entrance. Anyone on our flank, say again, anyone on flank, we need..." The transmission crackled and broke, then resumed, weaker. "They've got us dialed in from the 3rd floor. We can't see..." The voice shifted mid-sentence, became clearer, harder, same frequency. different inflection. "Copy. Alpha 2, a man said in accented English. "We see you too." The hairs stood up on Elena's neck. She switched her receiver, scrolling quickly. A second later, she found it. The same frequency, repeating in Arabic now. The words came fast, but she caught enough. "Front trucks damaged. Machine gun, good effect. More infidels at door. Watch your radios." "They're on an open channel," Maya breathed. "They're toying with them." "Not just toying," Elena said quietly. "They're listening." She imagined a man in a dark room overlooking the street, headset on, one hand on a detonator, waiting for the exact phrases. Breach set. Stack ready. The language of modern war turned into triggers. Naram Bridge came back to her in a flash, the way a distant squad had begged for suppression while she'd been stuck on the wrong side of a river, able to do nothing but whisper reassurance into the static. "Echo, Ta-Si," came the clipped voice again. "Say your position." "South flank, one lane off the structure," Elena replied. "We have eyes on the south wall. No movement yet." "Hold. We're working casualty evac at the front. ISR is retasking. You're our safety net if they exfil south. Don't punch in and leave a gap." "Copy." She saw the picture they were building at Tuck. Neat arrows, colored icons, their little echo element as a solid block guarding the south. It was tidy. It was wrong. "Copy," she said aloud. Maya's eyes met hers in the dim. "They're getting torn up." "Yes." Elena checked the recessed door again. No light leaked from the seams, no obvious wires, just a dark mouth into the building's belly. Her radio crackled with another wounded voice, someone calling for air. Talk shut it down immediately. "Negative on KS," the ops officer snapped. "Hostages unconfirmed. No bombs on that structure. That's straight from higher." No bombs from the sky, Elena thought. The enemy had solved that problem from their side. She toggled back to Echo's internal net. "We're not helping anyone out here," she said. "We stay. Those guys at the front still bleed out. We move, we might crack their flank or pull fire. Or we walk into a buzzsaw," the other operator said. "We go in. It's 4 against whatever that is." 20, Elena said quietly, surprising herself by saying the number out loud. "Or more," Maya's jaw clenched. "You heard something?" "Patterns," Elena said. "Too many voices on the net. Too much movement the last week. Front door's a meat grinder. The only way to change the math is to hit them where they're not looking." "Orders?" Maya asked. Elena glanced up at the dark bulk of the building, then back down to the alley. ROE said no indirect fires. Orders said hold position. Neither said she had to watch men die from a spot that couldn't affect the fight. "Echo," she said, voice firming. "On me. We're moving to the side entrance. We stay low. We stay quiet. We only engage with PID. We do not fire toward the front facade. Our job is to get inside and pull their attention off Alpha. No hero runs, no cowboy moves, just work." "That's not going to make Talk happy," the operator muttered. "Talk can write me up later," Elena answered. "If we do this right, they'll have someone left to sign the paperwork." Maya's mouth twitched, grim. "Copy, Frost." They shifted along the wall, hugging the shadows until they were a breath away from the recessed door. From here, Elena could feel the faint vibration of gunfire through the concrete. The building felt alive, humming with violence. She reached for the handle, then paused to key her mic one more time. "TOC, Echo," she said on the main net. "We're adjusting position slightly to improve south side coverage. Will report when static." She didn't wait for the reply. "Stack up," she ordered softly. Echo formed on the doorway, rifles angled, breath measured. Elena put her gloved hand on the handle and felt the cool metal bite back. The front was on fire. The flank was silent. She chose the silence and pulled. The handle turned too easily. Captor Elena Markova froze with the latch halfway down, feeling the gyve beneath her glove. No resistance, no deadbolt grinding, just a quiet click that sent a prickle up the back of her neck. Behind her, the stack held their breath. Sergeant Maya Ortiz covered the upper corner, muzzle tracking the edge of the doorway like it might bite. "Door's not locked," Elena whispered over the internal net. "That's either generous," Maya murmured, "or a love letter from an IED tech." From the front of the building, another burst of PKM fire ripped through the night, muffled by concrete but still unmistakable. Someone on the main net was crying out coordinates, voice shrill with adrenaline. "Alpha 2, still pinned. We've got wounded in the open." "Negative on movement. Stay low. Stay..." The transmission shredded into static. Elena let the handle rise back up, then signaled a pause with 2 fingers. Her heart wanted the door open. Her training wanted it interrogated. "Snake it," she ordered. Maya slid the fiber optic camera from its pouch, fingers moving with practiced efficiency. She knelt, threaded the thin cable under the door, and pressed the eyepiece to her goggles. "Feet up," she whispered. A faint monochrome image flickered in Elena's peripheral vision as Maya sent the signal to her display. A sliver of corridor, grainy, washed in ghostly gray. Floor, skirting board, a dark smudge near the threshold. "Left," Elena said softly. Maya nudged the cable. The view panned. A section of wall, the base of a stair, an overturned plastic bucket. No obvious boots, no bodies. "Right." The camera swung the other way. For a moment, nothing but cracked tiles and a strip of bare wall. Then, "Back 1, Elena said. There, a line, not thick, not obvious. Just a faint, taut shape crossing the lower third of the frame, a shade darker than the background, disappearing behind a pile of broken plasterboard. "Tripwire," Maya breathed. Row flashed in Elena's memory like text on a screen. Suspected booby trap entry. No forced entry without engineer EOD clearance. Clean, simple. Written by people who weren't kneeling in a dark alley while men bled 40 meters away. "Could be old," one of the operators whispered. "Could be nothing." "Wire's clean," Maya said. "No dust on the top edge. Someone's touched it recently." "Copy," Elena swallowed. "On the main net," a medic shouted for tourniquets. An explosion, smaller than the first, popped in the background. Secondary devices, or grenades. Every sound from the front painted a picture of chaos she couldn't reach from here. "Pull the view back," she said. "Low floor level." Maya eased the cable out a few centimeters. The image reversed, catching more of the immediate threshold. Tiles, dust, a smear. Elena's stomach tightened. The smear wasn't just dirt. It was a dark, dragged line, wider at one end, leading away into the corridor. Not splatter. She'd seen enough of that. This was something, or someone, pulled along the floor. "Blood," Maya said quietly. "Or spilled paint," one of the others tried. "Smell that?" Elena asked. They all went still, as if a small movement might erase the answer. The alley air carried diesel, frying oil from a distant kitchen, the sour note of garbage. And under it, faint but real, a metallic tang that didn't belong. Maya exhaled. "Yeah, that's not paint." Elena felt the old memory rise, unwelcome and clear. A different building, a different war. Her younger sister missing on the wrong side of a line no one wanted to cross. A door they'd stared at for hours while men argued about risk and liability. Numbers of hostages versus probability of traps. By the time they'd decided to move, they'd been too late. Rules had been followed. Lives had been lost. The paperwork had balanced out. Her sister's face never had. She blinked the memory away. "ROE says we call engineers," Maya said, as if reading from the same invisible page. "Wait for EOD. Different door, ma'am. Different day." Another scream cut across the net from the front, sharp, cut short. Someone's mic stayed open for a second too long, broadcasting raw pain. "Engineers aren't getting here in time," Elena said. "Ma'am, if that wire's tied to a can under the floor, we open wrong. We all go home in bags," the other operator said. "We're 4 people. We don't clear the whole building by dying at the threshold." "If that drag mark is a hostage," Elena replied, "they're not getting another chance either." Silence settled over the stack, heavy as the plates on their chests. "Options?" Maya asked, keeping her voice neutral. Elena thought fast. The wire might be keyed to a pressure plate, a pull switch, or something cruder. The one thing they had was information, its angle, its tension. "We don't kick the door," she said. "We don't breach with overpressure. We open it slow, keep the hinge side anchored. Links, get me a charge ready for that plasterboard pile. If the wire's running through there, we cut its anchor instead of disturbing the line at the door." "That's still guessing," Maya said, even as she reached for her kit. "All war is guessing," Elena said. "We just choose which guesses we can live with." Radio doctrine, ROE, reprimands. They were all very clear on what she was about to do. None of them would see the face of whoever had been dragged across those tiles. "Make it small," Elena added. "Directional as you can." Maya worked fast, hands steady. The little charge looked almost harmless when she finished. Just tape and putty and wire. Elena keyed the main net. "Talk, echo," she said. "We're at the south wall, still holding. Hearing movement inside. No squirters yet. We're adjusting micro-position for better coverage." The lie sat hot in her throat. Talk acknowledged, with a harried copy, nothing more. She went back to internal. "We open on my count," she said. "Links, as soon as I have the door stable, you place the charge around that corner on the plaster. We back off, pop it, and if we're still alive, we step over whatever's left and move. Muzzles low, PID only." "Copy," Maya said. Elena placed her hand on the handle again. This time, she felt the tremor in her own fingers. She wasn't afraid of dying. She was afraid of dying at the wrong door, for the wrong reason. 3, she whispered. 2, 1. She eased the handle down and pulled. No click, no sudden jerk, just the slow, protesting creak of hinges that hadn't seen oil in years. No blast. Cool, stale air slipped out, brushing her face. It carried the same metallic tang, stronger now, and something else. Disinfectant, faint and bitter, like a clinic that had once been clean. Maya slid inside low, hugging the frame, every movement compact. The others flowed after her, eyes wide. Elena held the door open with her shoulder, scanning the corridor beyond. The tripwire gleamed faintly in her NVGs, taut across the floor. Past it, the dark smear of blood led deeper, around a blind corner. "Charges going up," Maya whispered. The trap hadn't sprung yet. That just meant it was waiting. The little charge went off with a flat, angry thump. Dust billowed out into the alley, a hot breath that made Sergeant Maya Ortiz cough behind her respirator. Plaster chunks rattled across the tiles just inside the doorway, then settled into a fine, drifting haze. "No secondary," Elena's voice said in her ear. "Wires slack. Links, with me. 2 and 3, rear security." Maya's heart hammered in her throat as she stepped over the threshold. The tripwire lay limp now, one end buried under broken plasterboard where the charge had punched a neat cavity. No obvious grenade, no visible can, just a dead trap, or a live one whose teeth had been kicked out. Her NVGs painted the world in shades of green. The corridor ahead was narrow, its walls close enough that her rifle almost brushed them. Pipes ran overhead, sweating condensation that dripped in slow, patient drops. "White light, on call only," Elena whispered. "Lasers low. Remember ROE, no shots, on non-uniforms unless we see a weapon or hostile act. PID or we don't squeeze." "Copy?" "Copy," Maya breathed. "Copy. and try not to repeat history. They moved in a slow, deliberate rhythm. Maya took point, IR laser flickering in tiny bursts as she sliced each doorway with her muzzle. Her suppressed carbine felt heavier than it was, like all the weight was in the trigger. Somewhere above them, muffled by concrete, someone sobbed. The sound came and went, swallowed by other noises. Boots pounding, a shout in Arabic, the distant grind of the PKM still working the front. Contact audio, one level up, she murmured. At least two voices. One sounds hurt. Mark it, Elena said. We clear this level first. No stairs until we own the ground. At the first door on the right, Maya felt more than saw the shape behind it. A shift in shadows, a scuff on the floor. Her muscles tensed. Movement, she hissed. Elena's hand brushed the back of her plate carrier. Silent reassurance. Same drill. You call it. Maya took a breath. Door one, on me. She nudged the handle with her knuckles. It rattled, gave a little, stuck halfway. Wood swollen, not locked. She kicked once, sharp and low. The door flew inward, banging off something. Maya came in behind it, slicing corners with her muzzle, IR laser painting arcs through the dusty air. A small room, shelving, plastic crates, a collapsed chair. No people, just shadows and the smell of cooking oil. Clear, she said. They moved on. The second door was open a crack, just enough for a sliver of darkness. As she approached, Maya heard it. A quick intake of breath. Close. Someone trying not to make a sound. Her finger found the trigger without asking permission. Door two, she whispered. Got someone. She could feel Elena's attention at her back, a calm weight. ROE, Elena reminded her. You see a gun, you shoot. You see hands, you think. Hands, not guns. She repeated it silently, like a prayer. She eased the door open with the barrel of her rifle, inch by inch. The hinges groaned softly. The gap widened. A shape burst toward her from the dark, low and fast. Her IR laser snapped onto a chest-height blur. Her finger tightened. The world shrank to the tiny arc of travel between safe and never take it back. Stop! She shouted in the same breath. The figure froze, pressed against the wall, both hands up. In one hand, something rectangular glinted. Phone. It's a phone. Her brain registered it just ahead of her trigger finger. She dragged the muzzle up a hair so the sights were over his head instead of his sternum. Don't move, she snarled. The boy, because that was what he was, maybe 16 at most, stared at her with eyes too wide for his face. Sweat shone on his upper lip. He shook so hard his teeth chattered. The object in his hand was a mobile phone, old and cracked, a charging cable dangling like a tail. No wires, no detonator ring, just cheap plastic. Hands higher, she ordered, voice rough. He obeyed, the phone clattering to the floor. His chest hitched. Behind her, the other operators fanned out, covering corners. Elena moved to the doorway, eyes scanning, muzzle steady. See any metal? Elena asked quietly. Belts, vests, something that shouldn't be there? Maya forced herself to really look. Thin shirt, baggy pants, bare feet. No bulges where they shouldn't be. No telltale outlines. Just a skinny chest rising and falling too fast. He's clean, she said. Best I can tell. ROE holds, Elena said. We take him alive. Alive. The word felt heavier than any order to fire. Maya swore silently at her own shaking hands. She'd nearly put a round through this kid because he'd moved wrong in a dark doorway. Because last time, she had hesitated, and a different kid had died anyway. Caught in fire she hadn't started, but hadn't stopped. Hey, she said, switching to halting Arabic. No sudden moves, okay? We're not here to hurt you. He blinked, tears cutting clean streaks down dust-smeared cheeks. Please, he stammered in the same language. Don't leave me here. Don't leave me. They said they would. His voice broke. They who? Elena asked, also in Arabic, accent thicker but understandable. How many? The boy's gaze darted upward toward the ceiling. Many, he whispered. Too many. They came yesterday, and more today. They took people upstairs. They beat the men. They said there is a bomb. The word hung between them, heavier than gunfire. Bomb. Ask where, Elena said. Where is the bomb? Maya demanded. Which floor? He shook his head, hair sticking to his forehead. Higher. They don't let us near. Only the men with radios. And the girl. Maya frowned. Girl? He nodded quickly. One like them, but like me. Young. She has a gun. They listen to her. This keeps getting better, Maya thought. Any other civilians on this floor? Elena asked. He wiped his nose with the back of his hand. Not now. They moved everyone up when your trucks came. Maya met Elena's eyes over the boy's head. He's a liability if we leave him, she said quietly. He screams. They know we're here. He runs. They grab him. They know more. And if we drag him with us, he slows us down and gets shot in a crossfire, one of the others muttered. For a second, Maya saw another hallway. Another kid, blood pooling under bare feet. Her stomach clenched. We tie him off in a room, she said. Gag, hands, feet. We come back if we can. The kid must have caught enough from her tone to understand. Please, he whispered, switching to broken English now. Don't leave me. Maya's throat went tight. We're not leaving you, she lied gently. We're putting you somewhere safe. No place in this building is safe, she thought. Elena nodded. Do it. No rough handling. He's a witness and a civilian until proven otherwise. They hustled him into the storage room they'd cleared first. Maya kept her muzzle low, ashamed of how natural the movement felt, like she had to keep the urge to shoot on a leash. She bound his wrists and ankles with flex cuffs, more gently than she needed to, and improvised a gag from a strip of cloth, loose enough for him to breathe. His eyes never left her face. Look at me, she said quietly. We'll try to come back, but you stay quiet. You stay still. That's how you live tonight. Understand? He nodded, tears spilling sideways as they sat him against the wall. When they stepped back into the corridor and closed the door, the building seemed to exhale, as if it had been holding its breath with them. Elena, Maya murmured on the internal net, using her first name for the first time all night. I know, Elena said softly. You didn't. Maya flexed her trigger hand, feeling the phantom weight of a shot that hadn't gone. Next one might not be this clean. None of them will be clean, Elena replied, but we keep our line as far forward as we can. Above them, something heavy slammed against the floor. A voice shouted orders in sharp, clipped Arabic. Another voice answered, higher-pitched, unmistakably female. Sounds like upstairs is getting busy, one of the operators said. Yeah, Maya replied, and they've got a bomb. She felt the kid's words sitting like a stone in her gut. Many. Too many. She clicked her safety off again. Stairs, Elena ordered. We've got our answer. The party's not down here. They turned toward the stairwell, the echoes of their own footsteps climbing into a building that was starting to sound less like a structure and more like a trap filling up. The stairwell yawned upward like a concrete throat. Capt. Elena Markova paused at its base, back pressed to the cool wall, listening. The sounds from above filtered down in uneven waves, a man barking orders, the scrape of boots, the metallic clatter of something heavy being dragged. Now and then, a sharper crack bled through. Single shots, not the sustained roar of the PKM. Sounded like at least 5, Sergeant Maya Ortiz whispered. Maybe more, hard to tell with the echo. Echo. The call sign fit too well tonight. Elena took a slow breath and forced herself to think past the noise. The boy's words still rang in her head. Many, too many. A bomb. The girl. Row for this part of the fight was clear. No blind fire into stairwells. Someone in a safe room had written that line, imagining clean angles and perfect information. Hold here, she said. I want ears before eyes. She unclipped a small, battered device from her kit. The handheld SIGINT receiver, no bigger than her palm, a stubby antenna jutting from the top. It wasn't magic. It couldn't listen into encrypted calls or decode anything complex, but it could count. It could tell her who was talking and roughly where. She thumbed it on. The tiny screen bloomed to life with a line of numbers and a jittering signal bar. Immediately, it began to chirp softly, catching fragments of transmissions, little spikes hopping along its graph. Kill the local chatter, she ordered on internal. I want this thing as clean as it gets. Echo went radio silent, except for the faint hiss of the main net in the background, Alpha and Bravo still fighting at the front. Somewhere outside, sirens wailed and a dog barked hysterically. Elena dialed the SIGINT's sensitivity up, then down, feeling for the sweet spot where the external chaos dropped away and only voices inside the building remained. Tiny icons appeared along the bottom of the screen. 1, 2, then 3 active transmitters within range. As she shifted the device toward the stairs, more popped up, like constellations blinking on. Talk to me, Maya murmured. Radios, Elena said quietly. More than I like. They're stacked above us. As if on cue, the device chirped again. A burst of Arabic spilled from the tiny speaker, too compressed to follow, but layered. Multiple voices cutting in, keyed mics stepping on each other. Elena turned the gain down another notch and began to slowly sweep the receiver like a divining rod, toward the stairs, away from them, toward the walls. The signal strength rose sharply when she pointed it upward. They're clustered vertical, she said. 2, maybe 3 floors up. I'm reading 8, 9 active sets right now on this slice alone. Maya frowned. We were told 10 shooters total, tops. That's just this band, Elena replied. Watch. She tapped through frequencies, stepping across the narrow slices of spectrum their intel shop had tagged as likely for the cell. Each hop brought a new set of little icons, some blinking, some steady. Jesus, one of the other operators muttered. How many radios does one apartment block need? Elena did the math as she moved. 4 on one band, 6 on another, 3 on a third, with enough overlap to tell her some fighters carried multiple handsets. Roughly 20 transmitters, clustered like a tight swarm somewhere above. 20. The number settled into her gut like a stone, solid and undeniable. Confirm we're not picking up friendlies? Maya asked, grasping for the last safe possibility. Could be Alpha's people bleeds through. No, Elena cut in. Different power levels, different direction. Front fights off to our north. These are right above us. And they're talking a lot. As if to prove her point, the speaker caught a clearer fragment, one voice rising above the rest. Elena caught enough Arabic to piece together. Move them up. All hostages higher. If they push in, we seal the stairs. Hostages. Stairs. Seal. Her fingers tightened on the device. Echo, TOC. The operations officer's voice cut in on the main net. Crisp, despite the chaos. ISR now confirms multiple armed personnel on upper floors. We're revising enemy estimate to 12 to 15. Alpha reports heavy resistance at the front. What are you seeing? Elena stared at the dancing icons on her receiver. 12 to 15. He was still trying to make the numbers smaller than they were, as if that could shrink the problem. Talk, echo, she replied. We're reading more. Using handheld SIGINT, I've got at least 20 active radios above us, multiple bands clustered within 2 floors. That supports a higher enemy count than briefed. There was a pause. She pictured the operations center, officers leaning over screens, someone shaking their head. Echo, talk, the voice came back, edged with skepticism. Can you visually confirm that number? Negative, talk, Elena said. We're on the lower level. No direct line of sight without committing to the stairwell, but comms density is high. And we have a civilian witness saying many too many. Recommend you assume at least 20 combatants and adjust accordingly. Another long pause. In the background, she heard a muffled argument. Someone off mic, words she couldn't make out. Echo, Talk said finally, we acknowledge your report. For the record, we're updating to 15 plus until ISR can confirm more. Either way, you are outnumbered. Hold position on your current level. Do not ascend the stairwell. We're tasking reinforcements to push to your location and support a coordinated move. Say again, do not go up alone. The SIGINT receiver chirped again, as if mocking the instruction. One of the icons blinked rapidly, then steadied, then another flared next to it. Someone upstairs was moving handsets around, passing orders like hot coals. Talk, Echo, Elena said carefully. Be advised, enemy chatter indicates they're moving hostages to higher floors. I also heard reference to sealing the stairs. If we wait too long, we lose the vertical. Copy your concern, Echo, Talk replied. But we're not sending 2 operators up against 20. Reinforcements are en route. Your priority is to maintain your position and deny any south side exfil. That's an order. The word sat like ice in her earpiece. Order. Maya watched her, eyes searching. Well, Elena clicked back to internal. Talk wants us on this level, she said. Hold, wait for friends, play good blocking force. And in the meantime? Maya asked. Above them, a door slammed. Someone shouted. The receiver showed half a dozen icons moving in a tight cluster, drifting toward what Elena guessed was the far stairwell. In the meantime, Elena said slowly, they consolidate. They move hostages where ISR can't see, and they decide whether they want to die here or somewhere in the city. You going to follow that order? Maya's tone was even, but the question behind it was not. Elena looked at the SIGINT's jittering display again, at the number she couldn't unsee. 20. Not 8 to 10. Not 12 to 15. 20 men and 1 girl with radios and a bomb. I'll follow it, she said at last, until it stops making sense. She clipped the receiver back onto her kit, the plastic casing suddenly feeling heavier than armor. Set security on the stairwell, she ordered. No blind fire, ROE still stands, but we're not just a doorstop down here. While they think we're waiting, we're going to shape what we can. Maya's mouth twitched. So we hold, but we don't obey forever. Something like that, Elena said. Above them, the building buzzed with life. 20 unseen enemies moving like a storm gathering on the upper floors. Down here, in the dim stairwell mouth, Elena made a quiet decision that didn't go over any radio. If the choice came down to a bad order and a worse outcome, she already knew which one she'd betray. The stairwell felt tighter the longer they stared at it, as if the concrete were slowly leaning in. Echo, talk. The operations officer's voice came across the net, measured but frayed. Be advised, elements from Alpha and Bravo are regrouping. We're tasking them to push toward your position and link up on the south side. Reinforcements inbound, ETA, 15 to 20 mics. 15 to 20 minutes, cap tier. Elena Markova checked her watch. 23:24 local, UTC +3. In 15 minutes, a lot of people upstairs could be dead or gone. Copy, Tosi, she said. Echo holding on lower level, covering south stairwell. She left off the part about what exactly covering meant. Maya shifted beside her, eyes on the dark shaft above. Those reinforcements are guys who just got blown up at the front, she said on the internal channel. If they can move at all, they're dragging casualties. Best case, We get 3 additional shooters who can barely walk. Elena nodded. And Tiak thinks saying reinforcements will make us feel less alone. Does it? Maya asked. No, Elena said, but it makes them feel better. She pulled one of the remaining breaching charges from her kit, weighing it in her hand. It had been designed to punch holes in doors, not to reshape architecture. But explosives were honest. They did exactly what you told them, no more, no less. ROE says no preemptive dets without confirmed hostile movement, she said quietly. So we won't detonate preemptively. Maya gave her a look. But, Elena continued, we're allowed to defend ourselves if engaged, and nothing in the ROE says the stairwell can't be unwelcoming if they come down. Maya exhaled. You're thinking denial charges. Small, directional, Elena said. Not enough to drop the whole building, just enough to collapse the choke points if we have to. If they decide to push 20 rifles down these stairs with hostages in front of them, I want something uglier than 4 carbines between them and the street. She spoke clinically, but inside the idea settled like that same old stone in her gut. A loaded option. Once placed, it would sit there, waiting for her thumb. You're going to tell Talk? One of the other operators asked. Eventually, Elena said, in a way that doesn't give them time to overrule it. Maya's mouth twitched. That's one way to interpret report significant changes to the battle space. Consider this shaping the battle space, Elena replied. We're still holding, just holding smarter. She moved up 3 steps, then another 3, staying below the line of sight from the next landing. The stairwell's concrete skin was rough under her glove, cool and impersonal. She picked a spot where the wall met the underside of the next flight, a natural stress point. Lynx, she said, help me place one here. Low. Aim the blast into the corner. If we pop it, it'll break the rise and flood the steps with rubble. Maya climbed up beside her, already pulling tape from her pouch. The rip of adhesive was bizarrely loud in the confined space. Think we can keep it from punching through to the other side? She murmured. We control the size, Elena said. We're not making a crater. Just an ugly surprise. She pressed the malleable explosive against the concrete, fingers working it into a flat, tight shape. The weight in her hands wasn't much, not compared to the plates on her chest, but the consequences felt heavier than anything else she carried. As Maya taped down the wires, Elena felt acutely the gap between what Talk imagined they were doing, 4 operators sitting obediently on a landing, and what they were actually building, a decision point that wouldn't appear on any map. She ran the firing line back down the stairs, keeping it tight to the wall. They repeated the process on the next flight up, a second denial charge tucked into the corner where gravity would do half the work. 2 bites, Maya said. 1 to break the flow, 1 to finish the job. Only if we're engaged, Elena reminded her, and herself. ROE stands. No panic detonations. We blow only if they commit to killing us. And anyone behind them, Maya said quietly. The charges sat where they'd placed them, silent and patient, loaded guns pointing up the stairs, waiting for a hand to cock them. On the main net, Talk rattled off updates. Alpha's casualties. Bravo redistributing ammo. ISR struggling to track shapes through heat blooms and dust. No one mentioned the stairwell on the south side. Echo was a neat blue icon, still parked where they were supposed to be. Maya's radio gave a sudden, sharp chirp in her ear. She glanced at the small translator slate clipped next to her PTT, a patched-in feed from the SIGINT handset. Someone upstairs had keyed a mic close to an unencrypted channel again. This time, the voice was clearer. Young. Female. Move them higher, the girl snapped in Arabic. Line them against the walls. If they come up the stairs, you put the hostages in front. They will not shoot if there are cameras. Another man answered, nervous. What if they bring the building down? They won't, the girl replied. They are afraid. Their rules say they must protect the civilians. That is their weakness. We use it. Maya's jaw clenched. She's using our ROE as armor, she said on internal, hostages as plate carriers. Elena felt something cold click into place inside her. Nothing abstract now, no hypothetical hostages. Real people, being moved like sandbags to absorb bullets she hadn't even fired yet. She's not wrong, one of the operators muttered bleakly. You drop a charge into that, and it's slaughter, Maya finished. Elena looked back up the stairwell. 2 small lumps of explosives sat hidden in the concrete folds, innocuous and patient. A loaded gun on the table, she thought. Between me and whatever is walking those people upstairs. We finish the wiring and we hold, she said, forcing calm into her tone. ROE still stands. If they come down with shields, we reassess. And if they try to go up and out with them? Maya asked. Elena didn't answer. There were only bad options waiting above, and now she'd built herself one more. They heard them before they saw them. Boots on concrete, a shuffling rhythm, not the sharp cadence of a fire team, but something messier. Mixed in were softer sounds. A stifled sob, a cough, the scrape of something metallic dragging along the floor. Movement above, Maya whispered on internal. Multiple feet, slow. Captain Elena Markova pressed herself to the wall at the first landing below, eye to the narrow gap between balusters. Through her NVGs, the world was a green, grainy tunnel. She could just make out shapes on the floor above, shadows crossing a harsh rectangle of emergency light. They're moving hostages, she said. Listen. A man's voice snapped in Arabic, sharp and impatient. Hands on your heads, eyes down. Move. Another voice followed, higher, cutting across his. Female, young, confident. Keep them tight, the girl said. No gaps. You watch the stairs. If you see anything, you shout. You don't shoot. Not until I say. Elena's hand tightened on her carbine. The boy downstairs hadn't been exaggerating. Echo Frost, she whispered. We've got a column moving between floors. Likely hostages with armed overwatch. We'll hold shadow on the landing and see what we can peel. Rose scrolled through her mind like a checklist. Juveniles. Do not engage unless imminent deadly threat is clear. Hostage environment. PID required. No blind fire. She moved first, slow and deliberate, taking the inside line along the wall. Maya slid opposite, covering high, laser flickering low along the stair edge. The other 2 fell in behind, muzzles staggered. At the next landing, Elena dropped to a knee and inched her rifle forward between 2 balusters. Sightline angled up toward the next floor. Shapes resolved out of the shadow. A cluster of figures herded along the hallway. Some were barefoot, hands on their heads, shoulders hunched. Hostages. Behind them, men with rifles slung or half raised, moving in nervous, twitchy steps, and at the center of it all, cutting across their path like a shepherd dog, was the girl. She couldn't have been more than 17. Ponytail jammed through the back of a ball cap, loose clothing over a frame that was all angles. A carbine hung across her chest, smaller than the others, but real enough. A pistol grip jutted from her waistband. No obvious vest, but the cut of her top could have hidden anything. Elena shifted her sights up an inch and found her face. Focused. No visible fear. When one of the men hesitated, glancing toward the stairwell, she snapped at him and shoved his shoulder, pushing him forward. Don't look down there, the girl hissed. Eyes on the hall. If they're here, they already see you. She was right, Elena thought grimly. Visual on the juvenile, Elena murmured in English. Armed, directing. No visible vest, but can't rule it out. Shot? One of the operators whispered. Rowe pulsed again. No engagement on juveniles without imminent deadly threat. Not armed, not dangerous, imminent. The lead guard reached the top of the stairs, rifle angled down, eyes sweeping the lower shadows. He was jumpy, muzzle jerking ahead of his gaze. "On your left," Maya breathed. "I've got him." Elena gave a tiny nod. If he saw them and raised his weapon, they'd break him first, fast and clean, then see what exploded. The girl called out again, louder, switching to a rough English she'd clearly practiced. "Move! Move!" she barked at the hostages. "If you stop, you die here. You want to live, you go where I tell you." One of the hostages stumbled, catching a foot on a crack. A man behind him tried to support him. The girl swung her rifle up, not quite aiming, but the barrel was suddenly very close to the man's head. "Don't touch him," she snapped. "Eyes forward." The man obeyed. The stumble turned into a shuffle, the line moving on. "Target's got command presence," Maya said. "This isn't mascot duty." Elena had seen this before, in another country, another war. Someone too young wearing authority that should never have been handed to them because adults had decided their hate was worth more than their childhood. She swallowed the memory of a different boy, a different hallway, a muzzle flash she still tasted in her sleep. "Hold," she said. "We're not here for martyr shots. If she hard aims on a hostage or us, she's ours, not before." As if hearing her unspoken caveat, the universe decided to test it. A distant crack split the air from the front of the building. A different rifle, different angle. A stray round punched through somewhere above, showering plaster from the hallway ceiling. Hostages screamed and ducked. The lead guard panicked. He jerked his rifle down the stairs, muzzle sweeping dangerously close to the green glow of Elena's goggles. "Contact!" he shouted. He hadn't seen them. Not yet. He was firing at the idea of them. The girl spun toward him. In the same motion, she raised her own carbine, the barrel swinging down toward Elena's position. Elena's world narrowed to a crisp image. Front sight, girl's eye, the half-breath before the shot. Imminent, deadly threat. Her finger took up the slack on the trigger. Then, instead of firing, the girl snapped her barrel away and screamed, "Fall back! Get behind the hostages! Do not shoot yet!" Her aim tracked over the hostages' heads, not down at the landing where Echo crouched. For a fraction of a second, her eyes met Elena's through the half-dark, a flash of recognition or instinct. She saw us, Elena thought, and she's choosing not to fire. Yet. "Call it," Maya hissed. "She's armed. She's in charge. We drop her now." If Elena shot, she might break the formation, create chaos they could exploit. Or she might trigger a panicked volley, bullets scything through unarmored bodies between them and the guns. She saw the headlines, "Special Forces Kill Armed Girl in Hostage Hallway." She saw the faces on the floor, indistinguishable through blood and dust. More than that, she saw the single boy she'd killed years ago, his eyes wide with animal terror, her round taking him down because he'd raised a weapon too slowly, too clumsily for her to risk mercy. "Not again," she thought. "Negative," she whispered, easing her finger off. "No shot. She's holding fire. We hold fire." Maya sucked in a breath like she'd been slapped. "She could light us up any second. This is insane." "ROE stands," Elena said, harsher than she intended. "We burn a hallway full of civilians because I flinch at a teenager. We don't walk away from that. Not morally, not on paper." Upstairs, the girl kept shouting, pulling the fighters back behind the line of hostages, using them exactly as she'd promised on the radio. "Keep them between you and the stairs," she ordered. "If they want us, they shoot their own." The columns surged away down the hall, shadows folding into deeper shadow. The girl retreated with them, last to move, rifle never fully lowering. A moment later, they vanished around a corner. Elena exhaled slowly, muscles trembling. Her trigger finger felt numb. Maya's voice came through on internal, low and cold. You just let our best shot at their ringleader walk away. She didn't give me a shot I could take, Elena said. That's not how it looked from where I was sitting, Maya snapped back. Elena stared at the empty hallway above, listening to the fading footsteps and the echo of the girl's orders. Her voice, she realized, was now etched in her memory as clearly as Narim Bridge. If they heard it again on the net, she'd know it. She's not done, Elena said quietly, and we're not done with her. From above came the muffled thunk of a heavy door closing and the dull clack of a bar sliding home. The next time they met that voice, Elena knew, there would probably be no room left for hesitation. For a few seconds after the girl's column disappeared, the stairwell was almost quiet. Almost. The building still hummed with distant motion, a door slamming above, a chair scraping, the low murmur of men talking too fast. Beneath it all, the PKM at the front coughed another burst, like a reminder that time had not stopped for Echo's moral crisis. Sergeant Maya Ortiz leaned back against the wall, breathing hard. We let her go, she said low. We just let her go. Capt. Elena Markova didn't look at her. She kept her eyes on the landing above, listening for any sign that the column might be coming back. We obeyed ROE, Elena said. For the last 5 seconds of our careers, we're model soldiers. Don't joke, Maya snapped. She's going to use those people to walk right out of here, and we'll be the ones explaining why we didn't shoot when we had the chance. There was no answer that didn't sound like an excuse. Elena didn't try. Instead, she unclipped the SATCOM handset from her rig. The regular radio net was too noisy. She needed a quieter line, straight into the heart of talk. Echo, talk, she called on the standard channel first. Formal. Request SATCOM link for ROE clarification. Priority. A few long seconds passed, full of someone else's fight. Then, the SATCOM icon blinked alive on her display. The lag meant whatever she said would arrive a heartbeat late. Whatever they answered would come back filtered through seconds of delay and a room full of people who weren't breathing dust. Echo, talk. You're on secure. The operations officer's voice came through, slightly tinny. What do you need? ROE update, Elena said, and a reality check. Maya shot her a sidelong look at that phrasing. Go ahead, Talk replied. Elena crouched on the landing back against the concrete, SATCOM pressed close to her ear. We have at least 20 hostiles above us, she said, confirmed via SIGINT and audio. They are moving hostages as shields between floors. We heard direct instructions to put civilians in front of guns at this stairwell. Additionally, we have a credible report of a bomb on upper levels. There was a pause. A soft murmur not meant for her bled through. We're tracking some of that from ISR, Talk said finally. Hostage and bomb reports are not fully confirmed. Until they are, ROE remains as briefed. No structural demolition while hostages remain unaccounted for. Elena closed her eyes briefly. There it was again, the clean line drawn by someone far away. With respect, Toss, she said, the enemy is already using that ROE against us. They're counting on our reluctance to damage this building. They're maneuvering with impunity because they know we won't bring it down. Captain Markova, the voice came back a little sharper now. We have senior eyes on this feed. There is political interest in this operation. Collateral casualties are not acceptable. De-escalation is preferred assumption. That is not optional. Politicians are watching, she translated. Don't make us look bad. Copy political realities, Elena said, the words tasting like ash. But here's the tactical reality. If they decide to push 20 rifles and a bomb down these stairs behind a line of hostages, our only options will be to die on this landing or to use explosives in a way ROE doesn't currently allow. Silence. Somewhere above, someone laughed, a short, ugly sound. You have cover and weapons, Talk said. Your priority is to preserve your force and hold position. Do not take actions that might collapse that stairwell. Repeat, do not compromise the structure. We're working negotiations channels as well. There may be a non-kinetic solution. Negotiations. Elena pictured the girl's face, the way she had told her men to keep the hostages in front. There would be no negotiated exit she'd accept that didn't involve a lot of dead strangers elsewhere. She felt something twist inside her. Up until this moment, her anger had been mostly for the enemy. Now some of it turned sideways, toward the calm voice in her ear and the people sitting behind it. She looked up the stairwell, at the hidden charges, at the unseen hostages somewhere above them. She heard again the girl's words. Their rules are their weakness. We use it. At what point, she wondered, did bending the rules to save lives turn into breaking them so badly you couldn't tell which side of the line you were on? Taosi, she said slowly, this building is not structurally sound. Maya's head snapped toward her. Elena kept going. We've already encountered at least one rigged entry point. There are signs of ad hoc modifications to load-bearing walls. I'm feeling vibration through the stairwell that suggests the upper floors are stressed. If they start firefights up there, or set off the partial charges, we may see unplanned collapse regardless of what we do. It wasn't entirely untrue. The trap at the door had been real. The vibrations were too. But the conclusion she was nudging them toward was hers. Are you formally reporting an unsafe structure? Talk asked, cautious now. Yes, Elena said. The word fell like a stone. I'm formally reporting that the upper floors are at risk. If that's the case, then small, localized charges used for force protection on the stairwell may not be the thing that brings it down. They may actually allow us to control how and where any collapse happens. That was the lie sharpened into a point. Not that charges could drop the building, but that not using them might be worse. Another pause, longer this time. Off-mic voices overlapped. Someone said, "Brief the colonel." Someone else said, "Legal and acceptable risk." Maya stared at her like she was watching someone step off a ledge in slow motion. "You're gaming them," she whispered. "I'm giving them a choice, they understand," Elena murmured back. "Uncontrolled disaster or managed risk." Static hissed. Then Talk's voice returned, carefully modulated. "Echo, Talk. Your report on structural instability is received. Given that, we are authorizing limited employment of localized charges strictly for immediate force protection. You are not cleared for intentional structural collapse. You will document any detonations in detail after the fact. Is that understood?" Localized. Immediate. Force protection. Words with enough wiggle room to drive a truck through. "Understood," Elena said. "For the record, that means if we are directly engaged on this stairwell, we may use pre-placed charges to protect our element and prevent enemy movement. Correct?" Another tiny hesitation. "Correct," Talk said at last. "Within reason. But you will not proactively bring down floors. We're clear?" "We're clear," Elena replied. The line clicked back to regular net. Overhead, the muffled sounds of movement continued. Boots, a crate being dragged, a woman's voice giving orders. Maya exhaled slowly. "Congratulations," she said. "We have permission to do something they'll deny they ever allowed." "Permission's not the point," Elena said, tucking the SATCOM away. "Now, if we have to push that button, I can at least say we didn't do it entirely in the dark. And if we kill hostages when we do." Elena looked up the stairwell again. Her charges sat there, unseen, as patient as fate. "Then I'll sign whatever they put in front of me," she said quietly, "and live with the rest." She didn't say the part that echoed louder than any gunfire, that somewhere between following orders and lying for a cause, the line between hero and villain had started to blur, and she'd just stepped over it on purpose. The first indication they were coming down was the change in sound. Up until then, the building's noise had been horizontal, doors slamming along hallways, voices drifting sideways through concrete. Now, the footsteps shifted into a vertical rhythm, a drumbeat on the stairs above. Kapitolina Markova pressed her shoulder to the wall at the base of the stairwell, rifle up, muscles coiled. The air felt thicker, as if the building were holding its breath. Multiple contacts on the stairs, Sergeant Maya Ortiz whispered on internal. Speeds up. No more creeping. The SIGINT receiver at Elena's chest chirped in short, overlapping bursts, icons dancing as radios moved closer. They weren't just repositioning. They were committing. ROE reminder, Elena said, voice steady despite the tightness in her chest. We don't fire blind into the shaft. We engage with PID when they show. Charges only if we're directly engaged, and overrun risk is real. Copy? Copy, Maya replied. The others echoed her, one by one. Above them, a man shouted in Arabic, too loud, nerves leaking into volume. Watch the stairs, they'll be there. Another voice, the girl's, cut across his. Don't bunch up. Grenade first, then rifles. Use the hostages if they push. Maya's jaw clenched. She's really leaning into that human shield plan. Elena swallowed the bile rising in her throat. Eyes on, she said. Take what they give us. The first fighter appeared at the top of their sight line. Just a glimpse of legs and a rifle barrel as he edged around the center column. His muzzle tracked downward, jerky and uncertain. Maya's IR laser flicked onto his chest. She waited until his barrel dipped past the halfway mark, the moment intent became threat, and squeezed. Her suppressed carbine coughed twice. The man folded backward out of sight with a choked cry. The stairwell exploded into noise, shouts, boots scrambling, a spray of rounds punching into the walls above their heads. Dust rained down in a fine, stinging mist. Concrete chips nicked Elena's cheek. Contact! Stairwell! Maya shouted over internal. They know we're here now. Rounds smacked into the landing, sending sparks skittering. ROE said no blind fire, but ROE also acknowledged self-defense. Elena fired controlled bursts at the muzzle flashes that presented themselves, careful, disciplined. 2 down, one of the other operators called. They're pulling back up the flight. Wait, Maya said suddenly. Listen. The gunfire from above cut off abruptly, replaced by a frantic shuffle and a muttered curse. Then came a sound Elena hated, the metallic scrape of a pin being pulled, unmistakable even through concrete. Grenade! Maya yelled. Elena didn't think. Down! She barked, dragging Maya toward the base of the wall and curling over her. The others dove for whatever hard surface they could find. The grenade clinked against the stairs, bounced, rolled. For a heartbeat, it was just a small, dumb piece of metal. Then the world went white and concussive. The blast punched the air out of Elena's lungs. Her ears rang, a knife of sound that cut through everything else. Dust and fragments slammed into her back, peppering her armor. The stairwell filled with a choking cloud, turning her NVG view into a green blizzard. Something thudded against her leg. Maya. Elena? Maya gasped, voice thin and ragged. I'm hit! Elena pushed up, vision narrowing to the sergeant's outline. Shrapnel had chewed into Maya's thigh and shoulder, shredding fabric and leaving dark, spreading patches. Nothing gaping, nothing obviously arterial, but enough to slow her, enough to matter. I've got you, Elena said, more to anchor herself than to reassure. She threw a tourniquet high on Maya's thigh, cinching until the younger woman hissed, then clipped it off with hands that only trembled a little. Overhead, the enemy began firing again, emboldened by the blast. Bullets tore chunks from the stair edge, sending more debris down like gravel. A round sparked off the step inches from Elena's hand. This, she thought, counted as directly engaged. Her thumb found the detonator switch on her kit, the small plastic toggle tied to the dual prime charges above. Manual clacker backup hung at her side, a second option if the first failed. Two paths to the same irreversible outcome. She could, within ROE and orders, punch that switch now. The mental map unfolded in her mind. The first charge shredding the lower rise, collapsing concrete and steel into a choking barricade. The second tearing into the corner above, breaking their line of advance. Fighters crushed, stairwell blocked. Maybe some hostages too, if the girl had stacked them wrong. Maya's hand clamped onto her wrist. "Do it," she hissed through the ringing in her ears, "before they send more grenades." Elena looked up through the haze. Shadows shifted, silhouettes moving at the lip of the landing above. Someone leaned out just enough for her to see the outline of a rifle, and behind him, briefly, the hunched shape of a smaller figure, arms held over their head. Hostage, or shield, or both. Gunfire hammered the wall again, chips stinging her cheek. The building shuddered faintly under the strain. Everything she'd built, the lies to talk, the careful wording, the charges placed like insurance, funneled into this single moment, this thumb movement. "Echo, Tassi!" A distant voice shouted through the static, distorted by the blast. "Status south stairwell? Say again, Echo, report." Elena didn't answer. The detonator switch pressed against her skin like a burning coin. One flick, she thought. One flick and the math changes. One flick and we own the stairs, and also everything that dies on them. It took a breath that tasted like dust and metal and fear and eased her thumb off the switch. "Not yet," she said, forcing the words past her teeth. "Are you kidding me?" Maya rasped. "They're trying to cook us." "And if we blow now, we take whoever they shoved in front with them," Elena replied. "We only press this when there's no one left up there who didn't ask for it, or when the alternative is down. But the volume was less now, bursts shorter, probing. The grenade had shaken them too. The ringing in her ears faded just enough for Talk's voice to cut through, sharper this time. "Echo, Talk, we have you as engaged. Fall back to the lower corridor and hold. Say again, fall back. Do not get decisively engaged on those stairs. Reinforcements are pushing. Your survival is now priority." Maya laughed once, bitter. Now they want us to survive. Elena stared up into the gray swirl above, where enemies, hostages, and her charges all waited in a knot she couldn't untangle. Fall back, she thought, or stay and be the cork in this bottle. Her thumb hovered over the switch one last time, then dropped away to her rifle. "Decision time," she murmured, more to herself than anyone else. The dust in the stairwell hung like a second skin, clinging to faces, gear, thoughts. Captain Elena Markova could feel each breath rasp through it, as if she were inhaling the building itself. At her feet, Sergeant Maya Ortiz shifted, testing her wounded leg. Blood had soaked through the tourniquet wrap, but the flow had slowed. A manageable leak for now. "Echo, Taki," the ops officer repeated, more urgent. "Fall back to the lower corridor and hold. You are not to remain decisively engaged on that stairwell. Reinforcements are pushing from the front and outer cordon. Survival of Echo is now priority. Acknowledge." Elena's radio crackled with every word. Above it, the faint scuff of boots on concrete told her the fighters upstairs hadn't given up on the idea of coming down. "Ma'am," one of the operators said on internal, "we can still move. We pull back now. We live to fight from another angle." "And leave this as a straight shot to the street," Maya countered through clenched teeth. "They send hostages down ahead of them. They stroll right past our empty landing." Elena's hand brushed the small detonator switch on her vest. Then the manual clacker clipped near her belt. She felt their edges like teeth. The denial charges were one thing, surgical, focused, meant to break the stairway. But strapped against her pack, hidden under layers of gear, was the last resort. What had started life as a breaching satchel and become something else when she'd quietly rewired it earlier. The main charge was tucked into a utility void that ran behind the central spine of the building, where the stairwell met an inner wall. Not enough to pancake the entire structure, but enough, if triggered, to blow a hole through its heart. It was slaved to a safety circuit tied to the ugly digital watch on her wrist, a dead man timer set to revert the firing train to safe if it reached zero without manual commit. A clock she'd started when she'd placed the charge, telling herself it was just a contingency she'd never use. She glanced at it now. 0038. The seconds ticked down with an indifferent blink. "Echo, Tosi," the voice in her ear insisted. "Confirm maneuver. We need to deconflict your position with a possible push from Alpha survivors. If you hold that stairwell, you are in the way of our plan." Your plan, Elena thought, has been wrong since the briefing. She keyed the main net. "Toki, Echo," she said, keeping her tone professional. "We are engaged and pinned at the stairwell. We have wounded. Movement will expose us on the open corridor with no cover from upper fires. Break." Shots snapped from above, a brief, angry burst, chewing more concrete from the steps. She ducked reflexively, feeling grit pepper her helmet. "Break," she finished. "We can fall back, but as soon as we do, nothing stands between the enemy and the south exit. You will not have time to reseal this approach with your so-called reinforcements." "Echo, we're not debating this," Talk replied. The calm was gone now, replaced by strain and the telltale hint of a second voice feeding lines just off mic. "We have additional assets moving. Alpha elements within 10 mics of your position. Outer cordon tightening. You are 4 operators. We will not lose you on that landing. This is a lawful order. Fall back." Lawful. She'd sat through the classes, signed the acknowledgments. She knew exactly what ignoring that word meant. "Copy your order," she said. Maya's head snapped toward her. "We're leaving." Elena switched to internal. "We're acknowledging," she said. "That's not the same as obeying." The operator behind them cursed under his breath. "You're going to get us all hung out to dry at court-martial." "If you'd prefer to die clean on these stairs following a perfect order, I can step aside," Elena said, sharper than she meant. The words hung there for a beat, raw. Above, the stairwell went quiet again. Too quiet. No more probing fire. No grenades. Just the soft shuffle of weight and gear. Maya adjusted her position, gritting her teeth. They're regrouping, probably deciding whether to chase us down or go up and out. The SIGINT handset chirped faintly. Elena unclipped it, thumb rolling the gain. A burst of Arabic flooded the tiny speaker. "They're stuck on the lower landing," a man said. "If we keep them there, we can move the device." Another voice cut in, firm and familiar. The girl. "No," she said. "We stop playing with them. They are a distraction. We take the bomb, we take a few cameras, and we leave. Let them bleed in the stairwell while the real war happens outside." Elena felt her jaw clench. "They'll chase us," one of the men protested. "Not if they're busy saving their own people in the street," the girl replied. "You heard their rules. They won't sacrifice civilians here if it means losing more in the city. We hit the mall, the checkpoint, the NGO convoy, anyone. The message is what matters." Maya's eyes widened behind her goggles. "Mall," she mouthed. The girl continued, voice tightening with conviction. "We walk out of here with their hostages in front of us. We put on a show for the cameras, and then we take the war to their soft places. Tonight, we show them nowhere is safe." The SIGINT cut off as someone changed frequencies. The icons on the display shifted upward. Something cold slid down Elena's spine. This wasn't just about surviving the building anymore. It was about stopping that voice from reaching anywhere near a shopping center full of families. This is on me, she whispered, before she could stop herself. Maya frowned. What? Earlier, Elena said. In the hallway. I had her in my sights. I let her walk. We made the call, Maya said, but it sounded hollow even to her. Row might get 100 people killed at a mall, Elena cut in. That's the math now. Her watch ticked down. 0022. Ta came back again, insistent. Echo, we have you as non-moving. Confirm retrograde, or we will assume you are combat ineffective. Echo, the call sign, suddenly felt like a description, just a reflection of someone else's voice, bouncing back orders. Elena stared up the stairwell, at the invisible charges, at the path the girl and the bomb would have to take. If she fell back, she ceded this space. If she stayed, she defied direct orders and staked her team and unknown hostages on her judgment. Her heart and the handbook finally aligned on one thing. Whatever she did, she'd own it forever. She lifted the SATCOM again. Talk, Echo, she said, knowing she was about to cross a line she couldn't uncross. Be advised, enemy chatter indicates intent to exfiltrate with hostages and attack civilian targets in the city. Mall mentioned specifically. If they break this stairwell, your outer cordon will not hold in time. Echo, that does not change your orders, Talk snapped. You are not authorized to collapse that structure. You are to fall back and preserve your team. We'll coordinate intercepts outside. That is the end of this discussion. On her wrist, the timer kept pounding down. Second 15. Maya's breathing stuttered. Elena? She looked at her sergeant, bloodied, angry, still steady enough to fight. She looked at the dark above them, where a girl with a gun and a plan was already moving. She thought of Nareem Bridge, of her sister's door, of every time she'd obeyed and watched the aftermath haunt her. Copy, she said on the main net, but she didn't say what part she was copying. She switched back to internal. Maya, she said, if we walk away and they hit that mall, can you live with that? Maya stared at her for a long second, the answer etched plainly in her silence. Elena's thumb slid back to the detonator. The dead man timer blinked at her. 0010. Frost, you're not cleared to blow that stairwell, Talk said, voice gone icy. Say again, do not detonate. Boots pounded above. Someone kicked at a door. The girl's voice snapped an order Elena couldn't quite catch. Maya's voice came through, raw. We seal it now, or we chase them through bodies later. Heart or handbook, Captain. Call it. Elena's world shrank to a thumb, a switch, and the spaces between her ribs. The timer hit 0010 and rolled down. She hovered, caught between obedience and something that felt a lot like betrayal, and a different kind of betrayal if she did nothing at all. The timer on Elena's wrist rolled from 10 to 9, the digits blinking like an accusation. Above them, Boots hammered the stairs again. No more tentative probes. This was committed movement, weight driving down, gear clattering, men shouting to be heard over their own noise. Echo, Talk! The operations officer's voice cracked through the chaos. Do not detonate. Fall back. That is a direct... The rest dissolved in a burst of static as a fresh volley tore into the landing. Rounds chipped concrete inches from Elena's head. One, sparking off the metal rail with a scream. Hostile fire! Front! One of her operators shouted. They're pushing! Elena risked a quick glance up through the haze. Silhouettes crowded the upper flight. Too many shapes crammed into too little space. Some were hunched, hands over heads. Others stood taller, rifles angled down. The girl's voice rose above the mess. Hostages in front, she barked. If they shoot their own. A smaller form stumbled at the edge of the landing, forced forward by a shove from behind. Bare feet, a torn shirt, arms up in a posture that screamed, "Please don't!" A muzzle jutted past his shoulder. Row, she thought dimly, had never imagined this. Her watch blinked to 8. "Echo, fall back now," Talk shouted. "That's an order." Maya's hand, slick with blood, found Elena's forearm and squeezed. "If they get past us with that bomb," she said, voice hoarse, "none of this matters. Not the ROE, not the orders, nothing." Shots cracked again, a round smacking into the wall so close Elena felt the heat of the spall on her neck. Someone upstairs laughed, a short, cruel sound. Something inside her slid into place. Enough. She dropped the SATCOM, letting it dangle. Her hand closed around the detonator for the stairwell charges, not the main satchel. The bigger charge stayed quiet in its nest behind the wall, an option she hoped never to use. "Stairwell only," she muttered, mostly to herself. "We break the throat, not the body." "Say again," Maya gasped. "Localized force protection," Elena said, almost choking on Talk's own phrasing. "That's what they signed off on, right?" Her thumb settled on the switch. "Echo, Talk, if you detonate..." She clicked. For a half second, nothing happened. Then the world tore. The first charge blew the lower rise out from under the column of fighters. The blast slammed into the underside of the steps like a giant's fist, hurling concrete fragments and rebar into the air. The stair flight above them jerked, twisted, and dropped in a jagged, grinding lurch. The second charge went a split second later, higher up, biting into the corner where the next landing met the wall. The combined force folded the stairwell inward, turning clean lines into a ragged pile of stone and steel. The sound was less like an explosion and more like the building coughing up its own lungs. Elena felt the shockwave punch through her armor and into her ribs. Dust roared down in a choking wave, turning the air solid. Screams ripped through the noise, short, cut off, layered with a deeper, awful chorus of cracking and tearing. Somewhere in the maelstrom, the girl screamed an order that turned into a wordless cry. Elena's hearing vanished for a moment, replaced by a thick, suffocating silence. She couldn't tell if she was still upright until she realized her knee hurt from slamming into the floor. She blinked, hard. Her NVGs showed nothing but swirling green static. "Goggles off," she rasped. "White light, low." She flipped her NVGs up and clicked her weapon light on, angling it down to cut through the dust without blinding herself. Where the stairs had been, there was now a chaotic mass of broken concrete, twisted rebar, and motionless bodies. The central shaft was clogged. The neat spiral of steps replaced by a jagged plug of debris that stretched from their landing up into the floor above. Limbs jutted from the wreckage at sick angles, some in civilian clothes, some in dark shirts and tactical vests. She couldn't see faces. She didn't try. Maya coughed beside her, spitting dust, eyes watering. "Stairwell's gone," she choked. "They're not coming through that." "No," Elena said. The PKM fire from the front faltered, then cut off entirely. In its place came the distant wail of sirens, closer now, and the low thunder of approaching vehicles. Outside, the outer cordon was tightening. Guns and optics all pointed at a building whose main artery had just been severed. Her radio crackled back to life, sound returning in ragged edges. "Echo, Taka, what the hell was that?" the ops officer shouted. "Report. Did you detonate charges?" Elena swallowed against the dryness in her throat. She knew what the waveform recorder back at base would show. Her thumb, her choice, followed by 2 precisely timed blasts. "Affirm," she said, voice steady by sheer will. Echo employed localized denial charges on the stairwell in direct response to hostile fire and an imminent attempt to break through with hostages and a suspected device. "That was not authorized," Talk snapped. "You were ordered to..." "We were directly engaged. Stairwell at risk of being overrun," Elena cut in. "ROE allows force protection. The structure is still standing. The choke point is neutralized. Enemy movement down is stopped. Silence. Not because they agreed, but because they had to process the fact that the problem on their map had just changed shape. Behind her, one of the operators climbed to a knee, peering up at the ruined stairs. "I'm seeing at least 10 down in that pile," he said quietly. "Hard to count. No movement." "More above," Maya added, voice small. "And some of those aren't fighters." Elena forced herself to look closer at the edges of the wreckage, at a sleeve that wasn't tactical cloth, at a bare ankle dusted white. Her stomach twisted. Collateral. The word felt obscene. "Who won?" Maya asked, barely audible. Elena didn't have an answer. On the main net, someone from Alpha spoke up, voice ragged but exultant. "This is Alpha Actual. Machine guns gone silent. We're seeing collapse on the south interior. No more fire from the upper windows. Looks like you got them, Echo." "Got them." "Echo, talk," the ops officer said again, tone forcibly calmer, the kind of calm people used when others were watching. "Hold your position and prepare for follow-on clearance by assault elements. You will not move without direction. And Captain Markova, we will be discussing this in detail after exfil." She imagined the operations center. Wide eyes, a colonel rubbing his temples, a legal officer already framing phrases like unavoidable structural failure and fog of war. "Copy, talk," she said. She turned her light away from the pile, unable to look at it any longer. Most of the 20 were in there. She knew it, bone deep. The bomb, if it had been on that stairwell, was likely buried too, crushed or detonated in the chaos. The city outside would see no mall bombing tonight, no exploded convoy, no headlines about dozens dead in a marketplace. Instead, there would be a classified after-action report, some carefully worded language about necessary actions under extreme duress, and a tally of dead hostages no one would ever read in a press release. "Who won?" Maya asked again, louder this time. Elena took in the destroyed stairs, the intact outer walls, the wail of sirens, and the silence that had replaced the girl's voice on the net. "We stopped them," she said. It wasn't an answer, but it was the only true thing she had. Somewhere, deep under the dust and concrete, victory and guilt lay tangled together, indistinguishable. The shooting had stopped hours ago, but the war in Elena's head hadn't. Captor Elena Markova sat in a folding chair in a medical tent that smelled of antiseptic and plastic. The canvas walls glowed a dull beige in the harsh fluorescent light. The hum of a generator vibrated through the floor. Somewhere outside, a helicopter spooled up, rotors whining as though impatient to leave. On the table in front of her sat a small digital recorder with a red light glowing steadily. Beside it, a legal pad lay untouched, pen aligned perfectly along its edge. Across from her, a field-grade officer in a clean uniform and a JAG captain with tired eyes watched her like she was both witness and exhibit. "State your name and rank for the record," the field-grade officer said. "Captain Elena Markova, NATO Special Operations," she replied. Her voice sounded flatter than she felt. The JAG tapped the recorder. "This is a preliminary after-action review for Operation Night Spine, focused on Echo Element. Time 0431 local, UTC +3. Captain, we're here to understand the sequence of events that led to the use of explosives on the south stairwell, resulting in structural damage and civilian casualties. Do you understand?" Resulting in, not causing, she noted the choice of words. "I understand," she said. Behind her, separated by a thin curtain, she could hear Maya breathing. The sergeant lay on a cot, leg and shoulder bandaged, IV ticking. They'd insisted Maya be present for the AAR, for cross-reference. Elena had argued for letting her rest. She'd lost. "Let's start at your last clear order from TOW C," the officer said. "You were told to fall back from the stairwell, correct?" "Yes, sir," Elena said. And instead, you detonated charges you'd placed earlier, the JAG added. Charges that appear to have been in place before direct engagement on that stairwell. There it was. Elena kept her gaze level. We emplaced denial charges after TOC authorized localized use for force protection, she said. We were anticipating a probable enemy push down the stairs. The charges were intended as last-ditch tools, not primary options. Did you inform Tuck that the stairwell itself had been wired in advance? The JAG asked. Yes, Maya's voice said weakly from behind the curtain. Elena cut in, smoothly, before the sentence could grow teeth. Tosi was informed the structure was unstable and that we might need to use localized charges to protect our position, she said. The exact wiring pattern was not spelled out in engineering terms because we were under active threat at the time. The field officer glanced at the JAG. Understood, he said, voice neutral. He flipped a page on his pad. Walk us through the moment you chose to detonate. Elena saw it again. Dust, screams, muzzle flashes, the girl's voice promising to take the war to the mall, her thumb on the switch. Enemy fighters were moving down the stairwell behind hostages, she said. We were under direct fire from that direction. We had wounded. Sergeant Ortiz was already hit by grenade shrapnel. Movement to the rear would have exposed us in the open corridor with no cover. Based on ROE allowance for immediate force protection, I made the decision to use the denial charges to prevent the enemy from breaking out. You understood hostages were present in that space, the JAG said. Yes, Elena replied. I also understood that if those fighters reached the street with a bomb and a line of civilians in front of them, the casualty count would be exponentially higher. The outer cordon was not in position to guarantee interception. It was a choice between certain many and possible few. The words came out cleaner than the reality. They always did, in these tents. From the cot, Maya shifted. Ma'am told me to prep the charges, she said, voice thready. She planned it, in case... Elena turned her head just enough to catch Maya's eye through the gap in the curtain. The sergeant's face was pale, jaw clenched against more than pain. In case the stairwell became untenable under fire, Elena said, finishing the thought. Which it did. I take full responsibility for the placement and detonation of those charges. My team acted under my orders. The JAG studied her for a moment. So if anyone is to be held accountable for potential deviations from ROE, it's me, Elena said. There was no bravado in it, just a fact. My call, my thumb. Sergeant Ortiz was executing my intent, which was to protect our element and prevent mass casualty attacks outside the wire. The officer scribbled something on his pad. The recorder's red light blinked, impartial, capturing every careful word. Satellite and ISR review suggests that, following the collapse, hostile fire from the upper floors ceased, he said. Post-incident analysis shows that almost all identified enemy combatants were neutralized, including the PKM team. We also have confirmed civilian fatalities in the stairwell area. Elena kept her gaze on the recorder. Yes, sir. Do you believe you had any other viable option tactically? He asked. Yes. No. She could have obeyed orders, fallen back, hoped the cordon held, hoped the girl's bomb fizzled, hoped the mall stayed untouched. She could have gambled lives she'd never see on a plan that had already failed at every stage. I believe every option involved people dying, she said. I chose the one where the blast was under our control, not theirs. The JAG nodded slowly, as if that answer fit a box he'd already drawn. This AAR and any associated investigations will be classified, he said. Language used in public summaries will emphasize successful interdiction of a large-scale terrorist attack with unavoidable collateral damage. You understand, Captain, that details of pre-emplacement and timing will not be widely discussed. Unavoidable. The word felt like a shield they were offering her, and a grave they were shoveling for the truth. "I understand," she said. The field officer reached forward and clicked off the recorder. The red light died. "Off the record," he said, his tone softening a notch. "You kept something very bad from reaching a lot of innocent people. That will be recognized, even if not loudly." Elena didn't trust herself to answer that. Recognition wasn't what she felt. She felt the weight of a stairwell full of bodies she would never see clearly enough to count. Behind her, Maya spoke again, quieter. "Sir," she said, "for what it's worth, we all followed her. She's not the only one who—" "You're done talking for today, Sergeant," Elena said gently but firmly. "Doctor's orders." The JAG looked between them, then nodded. "We're good here," he said. "Formal findings will follow. For now, you're both restricted to base and subject to recall for further questioning." As they left, the medical tent's fluorescent buzz filled the silence. Elena sat there a moment longer, staring at the dead recorder. The official version was already taking shape, she knew. A story where Echo had done what was necessary, under pressure, in a collapsing building. Somewhere in that story, the hostages would be a statistic, folded into collateral. She stood, the canvas floor creaking under her boots, and glanced back at Maya's cot. The sergeant's eyes were closed, lashes dusted white, mouth set in a hard line even in sleep. "I'll carry it," Elena murmured, too low for anyone but herself to hear. "You just walk again." Outside, someone shouted a joke near the helicopter line. The war rolled on, indifferent to which parts of this night would be told, and which would be sealed away where no one would clap. The office they chose for the medal wasn't much bigger than a storage closet. Captain Elena Markova stood at something that wanted to be called attention, hands relaxed at her sides while an air conditioner rattled in the wall above her head. A laminated evacuation map peeled at one corner near the door. On the desk between them sat a single blue folder and a small black box. No formation outside, no flags on parade, just a colonel, a sergeant major, and a staff officer with a camera that looked like it had been borrowed from the PAO. The colonel cleared his throat. "Captain Markova," he said, "by direction of higher command, you are hereby awarded the Bronze Star with V device for valor in connection with combat operations during Operation Night Spine." He glanced at the printed citation, then back up at her. "For, exceptional courage under fire, decisive action in the face of overwhelming odds, and leadership that directly contributed to the disruption of an imminent mass casualty attack." He didn't say, "and the deaths we can't talk about." The words weren't on the page. "Step forward," he said. She did. He pinned the small bronze star above her left breast pocket with practiced fingers, careful not to fumble. Up close, she could see he hadn't slept much either. The lines around his eyes were deeper than at the last brigade brief. "Well done," he said, just loud enough for the camera mic to catch. "Thank you, sir," Elena replied. The sergeant major shook her hand, grip firm, eyes impassive. "Hell of a thing, ma'am," he said in a low voice when the camera shifted. "You and your sergeant did what a lot of folks couldn't." "Hell of a thing," she agreed. "It covered a lot of ground." The staff officer snapped a few photos. Tight frame, no wide shots that might reveal how empty the room was. "Got it, sir," he said. "These won't go on the public site," the colonel added, almost apologetic. "Operational sensitivities, but it'll be in your file." Her file. The folder on the desk ticked that box, too. He flipped it open and slid a paper across to her. "Next item," he said. "Personnel action. Due to the complexities of recent events, Higher believes your judgment is best employed in a staff capacity for the near term. Training, doctrine, liaison work. No demotion, no adverse paperwork. Just a change of scenery." The form said it cleaner. Reassignment, staff position, HQ element, effective immediately. This isn't punishment, the colonel said. You're good, Markova, but you also attract complicated decisions. Up there, he jerked his chin toward the ceiling. They like their complications at a distance. Elena read the lines, then the ones between them. Desk instead of doorways. PowerPoints instead of stairwells. Will there be changes to ROE? She asked, surprising herself. He blinked. Excuse me? For future ops, she said. We stopped a bomb at the cost we paid. Does that buy anyone else a clearer page next time? The colonel hesitated. There are some proposed amendments, he conceded. Clarifying language on hostage shields, structural risk reporting, use of denial charges. It'll show up in some annex to an annex on a future op order. His mouth twitched. Most guys won't read it until they have to. Someone will, she said. He pushed the pen toward her. Someone did. That's why you're still wearing that rank. She signed. When she left the office, the corridor outside was quiet, except for the distant clatter of gear being loaded somewhere on base. Her new orders sat in her hand. The metal rested in the box in her pocket, a small, sharp weight. Instead of heading straight back to the barracks, she detoured to the ops building. The GIOC was half lit, screens showing other grids now, other names. Rakim's old quarter flickered by once in a satellite feed and then was gone. In a small side room, she sat down at a terminal, logged in, and pulled up the draft AAR. The official story read smoothly: coordinated terrorist cell, brave action by Echo Element, unavoidable collapse of a compromised stairwell under heavy fire. Numbers were mostly absent. The word hostage appeared twice. Civilian casualties appeared once, bracketed by unconfirmed and limited. There was a field at the bottom, addendum, higher classification. Author access only. She opened it. The cursor blinked, waiting. She began to type. She wrote the real count of radios her SIGINT had picked up. The boy in the closet. The girl's words about the mall. The exact wiring of the stairwell charges. The moment on the landing when she hadn't pressed the switch. And the second moment when she had. The hostages she'd seen in the wreckage's edges. The fact that some faces would never be attached to names in any system. She wrote that she did not know, and would never know, if there could have been a cleaner way. When she finished, she marked the addendum for a higher classification than the main report. 3 people, maybe 4, would ever read it, or no one. She hit save. On her way back to the barracks, she passed the motor pool. A team she didn't know by name was kitting up beside a pair of MRAPs, checking weapons, joking too loudly the way people did before walking into dark buildings. A young lieutenant looked at a tablet, nodding through a briefing. That probably said 8 to 10 fighters max. Maya sat on the front step of the barracks, crutches propped nearby, leg bandaged under her sweatpants. She looked up as Elena approached. "How was the ceremony?" Maya asked. "Crowd go wild?" "Packed house," Elena said. "Air conditioner and everything." Maya snorted. "They give you shiny?" Elena tapped the box in her pocket. "They did." "You going to wear it?" "Sometimes," Elena said. "When it helps." Maya studied her. "You staying?" "For now," Elena replied. "Different job. Same war." Out on the tarmac, an engine revved, then another. The new team loaded up, silhouettes climbing into armored trucks under floodlights that made everything look cleaner than it was. No one clapped as the vehicles rolled toward the gate. Elena watched them go and felt the weight in her pocket, the heavier one in her chest. Some legends, she knew, got names and speeches. Others got buried addendums and classified footnotes. The city outside would sleep tonight without knowing why. She could live with that, she decided. She just wasn't sure how well.